Mirandasya Yananushalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rūpa Kadāyam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rūpam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathapitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritamsha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. So welcome back to the Friday and Saturday morning series on Rūpa Śikṣā. Yesterday we were discussing how when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was at Prayag, he was inundating the entire Prayag with Krishna praying. Although it is a confluence of the Ganga and the Yamuna, that doesn't overflow Prayag, but Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement was overflooding Prayag with Krishna praying. And at this point, a South Indian Brahmin comes and invites him, and Rūpa and Sanatan also meet the Lord there. And seeing the Lord holding a clump of grass in their teeth, they offer dandavats and start glorifying the Lord. Nana shloka padi. And then Mahaprabhu is very pleased to see Rūpa Goswami. Come here, come here. And Krishna has shown you mercy. Vishaya ko. He has taken you out from this Vishaya. The devotees of Sapacha is still dear to the Lord, but if a person is a Chaturvedi, but he is not a devotee, is not so much dear to the Lord, both Rūpa and Anupama, and then the Rūpa and Anupama glorify the Lord, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prem Padayate, and further verses also there. And then Mahaprabhu asked about Sanatana Goswami. So Rupa Goswami narrates that if your mercy is there, then he can be delivered. He's already delivered, Mahaprabhu replies. And the Brahmana who lunch and Rupa Goswami and Anupam also stay there. And Balabhadra Bhattacharya gives the remnants Triveni Bank in a secluded place. Mahaprabhu selects his residence, and the two brothers also select their residence nearby. At this time, Adalagram, he visits Mahaprabhu, hearing that Mahaprabhu has come. So yesterday in brief, we discussed about Vallabha Bhatta. Vallabha Bhatta is Vallabhacharya. Was quite elaborately in the first. So we will now continue the meeting of Mahaprabhu with Vallabha Bhatta or Vallabhacharya. Text. Oh, voice is not clear. Huh? Let me change the net connection then. Give me half a minute. Let me see if I change the connection. The audio would be better. Yeah. Okay, so let us now continue the meeting of Mahaprabhu and Vallabha Bhatta. Text 62. We are discussing this section from 61 to 76. Sri Vallabha Bhatta meets Lord Chaitanya. Teno dandavat kaila Prabhu kaila alingan Duijane Krishna Kata Aila Katashan. Vallabha Bhattacharya offered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu his obeisances. Teno dandavat kaila. Vallabha Bhatta did dandavat, and the Lord embraced him. Prabhu kaila alingan. Now you can imagine Mahaprabhu in South India, when he first was traveling, anyone who had his darshan was intoxicated with Krishna prema. And who this Vaishnava, now who had attained Krishna prema, when he used to go to his village, others seeing him were getting intoxicated with Krishna prema. That was the kind of mercy Mahaprabhu was bestowing. But you see that in this case, although Mahaprabhu is embracing Vallabha Bhatta, but still because he had some reservations, because he was coming from a very aristocratic Brahmana family and he had certain inner reservations. So that is the reason he still doesn't get full mercy of Mahaprabhu, although he gets Alingan. Dui Jane Krishna Kata Haila Katashan. After that, they discuss topics of Krishna for some time. Krishna Kataya Prabhura Mahaprema Uthila Bhattera Sankoche Prabhu Samvarna Kaila. Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt great ecstatic love when they began discussing Krishna. Krishna Katha Prabhu Mahaprema Uthila. And Bhattera Sankocha Prabhu Samvarna Kaila. But the Lord checked his feelings because he felt shy before Vallabha Bhatta. The Lord also had some reservation to expose himself before Vallabha Bhatta. Antare ghar ghar prema nahe samvarna ki chamatkar hala labar bhattaraman. Although the Lord restrained himself externally, ecstatic love raged within. Antare ghar prema nahi samvarne. There was no checking that. He could not restrain that. Vallabha Bhatta was astonished to detect this. Deki chamatkar hala Vallabha Bhattera man. So these ecstatic premas which Mahaprabhu exhibited are very, 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 very exalted. We know that there are 9 stages of bhakti: Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Anarth Nivritti, Anarth Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. And within Prema, a sadhaka, when he attains Siddhi, this life, can attain Prema. But there are higher levels in Prema which ecstasies this body cannot handle. Although this body is purified by doing sadhana, but still it cannot handle the ecstasies. So only when one, leaves this body and goes and joins Krishna Lila, and there, in whatever meditation he has worshipped Krishna, whether it is a Gopi form or a Gopa form, in Sakya Ras or Vatsalya Ras, or it is Madhur Ras, that body he will attain in Krishna's Leela pastimes. And there the higher levels of prema, like mana, pranaya, raga, anuraga, bhava, and mahabhava. So Radharani is the personified form of Mahabhava. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the mood, the kanti, and the emotion of Srimati Radharani. So these ecstatic emotions are what Mahaprabhu was experiencing. These are Mahabhava, ecstatic emotions. And the Ashta Sattvic Vikars simultaneously manifest to full effect. All the 8 transformations simultaneously manifest. So when all the 8 ecstatic symptoms manifest simultaneously, it is difficult to hold. So Mahaprabhu was not able to hold them. Nahe samvarna. And seeing this, Vallabha Bhattera, he was astonished to detect this. So we can see similarly, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when Mahaprabhu first time had Jagannath Darshan, he collapsed. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took him to his home, and then externally there was no consciousness, but then he took a cotton swab and kept it near the nose, and he understood that these symptoms are not of a human being. And these symptoms are of actually God. But yet, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because he did not have the association and the mercy of the devotees, his heart did not get transformed. Ultimately, in that conversation, Mahaprabhu bestowed his mercy, and then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya understood the glory of Mahaprabhu. So, although Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was able to understand these ecstatic symptoms are not any human being, still he could not get transformed. Similarly, Vallabha Bhatt also understood now the ecstatic symptoms of Mahaprabhu are not ordinary. But yet he could not get the full mercy of Mahaprabhu because he had some reservations. And we will see that it will come up again in the purpose. Tabe Bhatta Mahaprabhura Nimantrana Kaila Mahaprabhu Dui Bhai Tahara Milaila. Thereafter, Tabe Vallabha Bhatt invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for lunch. Nimantra Kaila. And the Lord introduced the brothers Rūpa and Vallabha to him. Mahaprabhu Dui Bhai Tahara Milaila. So here this Vallabha is Anupam, the younger brother of Rūpa Goswami, and this is Vallabh Bhatta, who is belonging to the Vishnu Swami sect, and the followers of Vallabhacharya, they are called as the followers of Vallabhacharya. It is a sub-branch in the Rudra Sampradaya, as I mentioned. Dui bhoy dura hoite, bhumite padiya, bhatte dandavat kaila, ati dinahana. From a distance, Dura, the two brothers, Rūpa Goswami and Sri Vallabha, fell on the ground and offered obeisances to Vallabha. Dui bhai bhumite padita, dandavatte, dandavat kaila. So they offered dandavats to Vallabha. How? With great humility. Ati dina hana. So this is very important, that one of the qualifications of a pure devotee is he possesses great humility. And Rūpa Goswami and Vallabha, being very great exalted devotees, they exhibited this mood that they offered dandavats with humility, genuine humility of the soul. Bhatta milivareyaya duhe palaya dure asprasya pamaramuni na chunya more. When Vallabh Bhattacharya walked toward them, Bhatta milivareyaya, yaya means he went, they ran away to a more distant place. Doni palaya dure. Both of them, palaya means to run. They ran away a little far. Rūpa Goswami said, I am untouchable and most sinful. Asparsha pamaramuni. Asparsha means untouchable. Pamar means I am sinful. Na chuina more. Please do not touch me. Bhattera vismaya hoila prabhura harshamana. Bhattera kahila prabhu tanra vivarna. Vallabha Bhattacharya was very much surprised at this. Bhattera vismaya hoila. When Rūpa Goswami spoke like this, Vallabha Bhattacharya was surprised. What is this? But Prabhura Harshaman, but Mahaprabhu was very, very pleased. Mahaprabhu, however, was very pleased. Why was Mahaprabhu pleased? What is the reason Mahaprabhu was pleased? Anyone would like to answer? What is the reason Mahaprabhu was pleased? Although Bhattacharya, Vallabh Bhatta, was surprised by this behavior. Yes, Mahaprabhu was pleased by the humility which was exhibited by Vallabha Bhatta and Vallabha is Anupam and Rūpa Goswami. So Mahaprabhu's mercy, if one wants, the first criteria is come to this platform of Trunadapi Sunichena. Trunadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadhari. Only when one comes to this platform, then one can experience Mahaprabhu's mercy. So this stage is the stage when actually one is the self-realized soul. Because in the Śikṣā commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Sambodhana Bhashya, he mentions that Nishtha is the stage which is equivalent to Trunadapi. He gives the 8 verses of Śikṣā to different stages of bhakti. The first stage is Shraddha. The second verse of Śikṣā is Sadhu Sangha Bhajan Kriya and Anabhi. The third verse of Śikṣā is Nishtha. So only one who has got this Nishtha, that means one is self-realized, he possesses this genuine humility of the soul. He has actually attained the mercy of Mahaprabhu. So the symptoms also are mentioned of a self-realized soul in the Bhagavad Gita, the Sthita Pragya section. And even in 5.18 in the Gita, Vidya Vinay Sampanne, Brahmani Gavihastini, Suni Cheva Sapakecha, Pandita Samadarshana. So we have to come to this stage by performing Bhajan Kriya, where we possess this genuine humility of this. As long as we don't come to this inner mood where we have the genuine humility of the soul, till then we have to do sadhana, taking the austerity of always offering dandvat to deities, dandvat to Vaishnavas. Whenever you want to offer dandvat, false ego gives trouble to the mind. Why you want to take the trouble of offering dandvat? Why you want to humble down so much yourself? This is how the false ego is speaking to the mind, and the mind is reacting back. So this is a sadhana we should do, that whenever we see the deities, see the Vaishnavas, we offer dandavats, and by this external act, slowly it will have internal effect. The external has effect on the internal. And when the genuine humility of the soul springs up at the stage of Nishtha, it is natural for the soul to be humble. So naturally, humility was possessed by these exalted Vaishnavas, Rūpa Goswami and Anupama. And seeing this, Prabhura Harsha Mana, he was very, very pleased. And he therefore spoke to him this description of Rūpa Goswami. Prabhu Tandra Vivarna. So, Bhattera Vismayala, he was surprised, and to clarify this behavior of Rūpa and Anupam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu starts describing. He starts describing about this Rūpa Goswami. Now Mahaprabhu speaks. Iho na sparshiya, iho jati atihi, vaidika yadika tumi, mulina praveen. In one sense, he's sarcastically saying this. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't touch him, for he belongs to a very low caste. Iho jati atihin. Iho na sparshiya. Don't touch him. He's a very, belonging to a low caste. And then, on the other hand, you are a follower of Vedic principles, Vaidiki, and are well-experienced performer of many sacrifices, Yagiki, Kulina Praveen to me. You also belong to the aristocracy. So, in the Kunti Maharani's prayers, it is there. Janma Ishwara Shri Eramada Madakumar Naivatum Avivatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gochara. One who is born, Janma, in a royal family, aristocratic family, Aishwarya, one who has a lot of wealth. Shruta means one who is highly educated in a material sense. And Shri means beauty. All these cause pride. And one who is having pride doesn't have humility. So that's why Prabhupada in that purport of Kunti Maharani's prayers explains that he cannot feelingly call out the holy names of the Lord. So here we see that Kulina Praveen, Vaidika Yagika, Vallabhacharya was coming from this background. So he had that. And that's why initially we saw in the purport also, he thought that he would not get much respect from Mahaprabhu. That's why he started his own sampradaya and did not completely surrender to Mahaprabhu. So here Mahaprabhu is telling, don't touch them. They are from a low caste and you are Vedic, Yagika, and you are coming from an aristocratic family. But Vallabhacharya could understand this. So now Vallabhacharya, Prabhupada gives a purport to this. Let us see this purport. It's very interesting. He's explaining now. Prabhupada's purport. Generally, Brahmanas are puffed up with false prestige because they belong to the aristocracy and perform many Vedic sacrifices. So I was mentioning about Kunti Maharani's prayers. Janma Ishwara Shruta Shri. Yeah, they're puffed up with pride. Puff means pride, with false prestige, false pride. In South India, especially, this fastidious position is most prominent. So, especially in South India, we see there are a lot of South Indian Brahmins, and South India is filled with Vaishnavism, with Vishnu temples, and those coming from the Brahmana community worship these deities. And they are usually very fanatic, or they are too much fussy about cleanliness. And if anyone goes near the deity to take darshan, hey, be aside. So I also have this experience. I was recently in the Rūpa Śikṣā temple, and the Madhu Sarovar is there, and there's a beautiful temple of Ganga Devi there. And I was, wow, this is Ganga Devi in her vehicle, the crocodile. And a very young Pujari was worshipping the deity. So I went a little near to take darshan. And then he was offering tulsi to the deities and offering some prayers. But then he said, no, move aside, don't come here. So this kind of fastidious position is there, that they are fanatic about these things, about cleanliness and all. At any rate, this was the case 500 years ago. So now it has come down over a period of years, but in 500 years ago, it was very, very strict. In fact, it is said that the Yavana, if you just throw some water on a Brahmana, then that Brahmana is considered as an outcast now. He is not accepted back in the Brahmana community. So that was a kind of fanatism 500 years back. Of course, now it is not there. But still in South India, you see this. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually started a revolution against this Brahminical system by inaugurating the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So Mahaprabhu actually to cut down this misconception against this Brahminical system, because the Brahminical system degraded with the beginning of Kali Yuga. The Brahmanas who are supposed to actually lift the other lower varnas, that the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, they started exploiting and they started discriminating. And that's how the whole varnaship collapsed with the beginning of Kali Yuga. So Mahaprabhu started a revolution to, in fact, cut this misconception by chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. By this chanting, one can be delivered regardless of caste, creed, color, or social position. Whoever chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is immediately purified due to the transcendental position of devotional service. He is immediately purified. Sadhyopi Shavanaya Karapate. In the Bhagavatam also written, Sadhyopi. Immediately he is purified. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is here hinting to Vallabha Bhattacharya that an exalted Brahmana who makes sacrifices and follows Vedic principles should not neglect the person who is engaged in devotional service by chanting the holy name of the Lord. So this is what actually Mahaprabhu is hinting to Vallabhacharya, and Vallabhacharya understands the hint. He understands the hint and he understands the glory of Rūpa and Anupam, yet he doesn't join the Mahaprabhu movement. He understands it. Actually, Rūpa Goswami did not belong to a lower caste. He was from a highly aristocratic Brahmana family. He was belonging to the Gauda Saraswat Brahmana from Karnataka, South India. But due to his association with the Muslim Nawab, he was considered fallen and was excommunicated from the Brahmana society. So because both the brothers were serving the Nawab, the Brahmana society had ostracized them. So they were no more considered as Brahmanas. They were considered as lower caste. But actually, Rūpa Goswami was belonging to this higher Brahminical caste, one of the topmost Brahminical caste. However, due to his advanced devotional service, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as a Goswami. Vallabhacharya knew all this. So because he had taken up the devotional service and he was actually a Goswami, this Goswami is not a title which is given because you are born in a family with a surname as Goswami. The Goswami title comes because you are able to fulfill the criteria of Rūpa Goswami's first verse of Upanishad. One who is able to control his senses only is the Goswami. So Vallabhacharya could understand this. One who is a devotee is above caste and creed, yet Vallabhacharya felt himself prestigious. Please carefully mark Prabhupada's statements, and that's why I've marked them in bold, different color. So a devotee is above caste and creed, and yet what? Vallabhacharya felt himself prestigious, coming from an aristocratic family, Brahmana family. So we see this today. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra and Srila Prabhupada spread and has made Krishna devotees all over the world, regardless of caste, creed, or social position. And right from the aristocratic, those are coming from the Brahmana families, to the most fallen of the fallen degraded souls, all together unite in glorifying and chanting and purifying themselves by the process of devotional service. And here in India also, those, especially those sampradayas, especially you see in South India, as Madhya Sampradaya, still don't accept ISKCON devotees as bona fide, and only Brahmanas can get initiation. All that still conception is there. To a certain degree it is there, and slowly now, it is opening up, but it is there. So we can see here Vallabhacharya felt himself a little prestigious. But Prabhupada, on the other hand, he is now explaining the situation now during his time. The present head of the Vallabh Bhattacharya Sampradaya of Bombay is named Dikshit Maharaj. He is very friendly to our movement. Prabhupada is saying our movement, not my movement. And when we meet him, when I meet, Prabhupada is not saying, when we meet him, this is a sign of humility. In Sanskrit, it easily comes up, but in English, why we? Prabhupada is we. Sometimes in Sanskrit, something can be singular, but it can be used in a plural sense. But it is actually singular. So in English, that kind of facility is not there. So Prabhupada is referring to himself, but he's saying out of humility, we meet him. When we meet him, this learned Brahmana scholar, Prabhupada is praising, highly praises the activity of the Hare Krishna movement. So in contrast to what happened 500 years back, what is the present mood of the head of the Vallabh Bhattacharya Sampradaya? What is Prabhupada's relationship with him? How he is reciprocating? Prabhupada is mentioning in his purport. Prabhupada is saying he is the life member of our society. And although he is a learned scholar, the Brahminical caste tradition, he accepts our society and considers its members bona fide devotees of Lord Krishna. So as I mentioned, over the period of time, the other sampradayas who more stick down to only Brahmanas can get initiated, only Brahmanas can take up the spiritual life. So this is slowly waning up now. And this is, Prabhupada's his own experience is mentioned here. Text 70. Duhara mukha nirantara Krishna nama shuni attaka he prabhu kichu ingita bhangi jani. Hearing the holy name constantly vibrated by the two brothers. Duhara mukha nirantara Krishna nama shuni. Vallabha Bhattacharya could understand the hints of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Attaka he prabhu kichu ingita. Ingita means hint. Bhangi Jani, he could understand the hints, so what Mahaprabhu was saying. So it's a very subtle way of telling things. And here is a very important point to be noted. Nirantara Krishna Nama Shuni. As long as one doesn't come to the Namabhash stage or to the stage of Madhyamadikari, or you can say at the stage of Nishtha, one cannot chant the holy name continuously, or to the stage of Trunada peace reaching. Because Kirtaniya Sadahari. So one of the symptoms of a Madhyamadikari is Nirantara Namaloy. He's constantly chanting the holy names of the Lord. And the symptoms of a Prema Bhakta is that just by coming in touch with him, others start taking the holy name. That's preaching. So this is the standard we should come to. And this is the stage. Namabhasa stage is one is liberated. At the stage of Nishtha, one is liberated. One is a self-realized. So Bhatta could understand, Vallabhattacharya could understand, oh, they are constantly taking the name of Krishna. So he could understand this. So he spoke now. Duharamuke Krishnam Kariyache Nartan Eidui Adam Nahi Hoya Sarvatam. What Vallabhavacharya said? He said, since these two are constantly chanting the holy name of Krishna, Duharamuka Krishnam Kariche Nartan. How can they be untouchable? Eidui Adam. They are not Adam. Hoya Sarvatam. On the contrary, they are the most exalted. Now, purport. Vallabha Bhattacharya's admission of the brother's exalted position should serve as a lesson to one who is falsely proud of his position as a Brahmana. So Prabhupada is again making this point that Vallabha Bhattacharya himself is admitting that anyone who is taking the name of Krishna, although he might be from the social position coming from a lower caste, but he is the most exalted. And one should not take pride in, no, I am superior because I am coming from a Brahminical community. So who is superior and inferior is based solely on not on the caste social position, but on the spiritual position, based on the spiritual status. A Kanishta Adhikari, one who is doing Namapara chanting, he's at the lower position. That's why he's Kanishta Adhikari. That's why we should offer pranams to him. A Madhyam Adhikari, he's Nirantar taking the name of the Lord. He's expert in bhajan. He's always engaged in bhajan. We should offer pranams and dandavats to him. And Uttam Adhikari, he is expert in bhajana vikya. Bhajana vikya, and his heart is completely pure. Nindadi shunya hridaya vipsita sankalapa. Such kind of Mahabhagavata association we should have. So based solely on the spiritual status, one's elevation is decided and not based on the varna. So Prabhupada is saying we should take this lesson from Vallabha Bhattacharya, his statement. It is his statement. Sometimes so-called Brahmanas do not recognize our European and American disciples as devotees of Brahmanas. And some Brahmanas are so proud that they do not allow them to enter temples. So this is also there in India, that during Prabhupada's time, many in the South Indian temples, when Prabhupada disciples were Westerners who came to spread his movement, they were very ecstatic and enthusiastic to, visit the temples of Krishna and Vishnu and have darshan, but sometimes they were not allowed. So because this kind of discrimination was done, there is one incident, famous incident in Vrindavan, where one of Prabhupada's disciples went to take darshan, and the Brahmana Pujari, he told, oh, it's nice that you have, become a devotee of Krishna. So practice spiritual life. In the next life, because of your practice, you'll be born in a Brahmana family, and then you will get liberated. Something like that, he said. So this devotee was little disturbed hearing this. So he went back to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, this Pujari is a Brahmana and he told this. So Prabhupada decided, go and tell that Pujari that if he takes up the spiritual life chanting of Hare Krishna, then he'll be fortunate. Next life, he will be born in ISKCON family, and then he will be liberated. So Prabhupada, replied like this. But at least after 50 years now, things have really improved. And the Brahmanas who are also pujaris, born in Brahmana families, they are recognizing the devotees of ISKCON as bona fide devotees of Krishna. Of course, till now also Jagannath Puri temple, Westerners are not allowed. But at least in major temples in South India and other temples, Western devotees, European devotees are allowed. And the local Brahmanas are understanding the glories, and they are slowly now opening up. So Prabhupada was mentioning this. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu herein gives a great lesson. Although Vallabha Bhattacharya was a great authority on Brahmanism and a learned scholar, he admitted that those who chant the Lord's holy name are bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas and are therefore exalted. So he admitted that. Vallabhacharya, he was a great authority, he also admitted. So Kaviraj Goswami quotes this famous verse from the Bhagavatam 3rd canto. Devotees speaking after hearing from Kapil Dev. Aho pad sapacho to garyan yajjivagre vartate namunyam te pustapaste jivam shashnurarya brahmanuchor nam grananti yete. Vallabha then recited the following verse. So he was a great learned scholar, so he gave reference. My dear Lord, one who always keeps your holy name on his tongue, Yajjiva Agre Vartate Namatuntam, becomes greater than an initiated Brahmana. Although he may be born in a family of dog eaters. Aho Bat Sapajo Te Gariyan. Gariyan means he is far superior and may therefore by material calculation be the lowest among men. He is still glorious. He is Gariyan, is glorious. This is the wonderful effect of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Aho Bat. It is therefore concluded that one who chants the holy name of the Lord should be understood to have performed all kinds of austerities, tepus, tapas, and great sacrifices. Juvuhu means the yagyas mentioned in the Vedas. He has already taken his bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage, and he has studied all the Vedas, and he is actually an Aryan. Shashnur Arya Brahmanuchur Nam Grananti Yete. So Vallabha Bhattacharya quotes this to substantiate his statement. Shuni Mahaprabhu Tanra Baho Prashamshila Prema Vishtahana Loka Paditala Nila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased to hear Vallabha Bhatta quoting from Shastra about the position of a devotee. Prashamshila, he plays, the Lord praised him personally, and feeling ecstatic love of Godhead, began to quote many verses from Shastra. So Mahaprabhu now became ecstatic, and he started quoting from Shastra. So Mahaprabhu starts quoting now. Sadbhakta Tiptagni Dhagda Durjati Kalvasha Swapakopi Uday Slagyo Naveda Vedagyo Pinastika. So Mahaprabhu said, a person who has the pure characteristics of a Brahmana due to devotional service. So the characteristics of a Brahmana, the quality is based on Lakshanas. If he is having the qualities of Brahmana, that is Shamo, Damo, and this quality is coming because of his devotional service, then you have to accept him as the Brahman, which is like a blazing fire burning to ashes all the sinful reactions of past lives. Because of that, Suchi means good qualities, Sad Bhakti, because of the practice of devotion. Diptagni Dagda. It is like a fire which burns, Durjati Kalmasha, burns all the contamination, all the sinful reactions. Is certainly saved from the consequences of sinful acts, such as taking birth in a lower family. Swapakopi. Swapaka means swapacha. One who eats, one is born in a lower family, one is a dog eater. Even though he may be born in the family of dog eaters, he is recognized by learned scholars. Uday Slago. The learned scholars understand. But although a person may be a learned scholar in Vedic knowledge, Vedakyopi, he is not recognized if he is a atheist, Nastika. Even if one is a Vedagya, one is a learned scholar, he is not recognized if he is Nastic, if he is an atheist. So, Prabhupada in his purport quotes that this is a quotation from Hari Bhakti Suhodaya. And what is Hari Bhakti Suhodaya? A transcendental literature extracted from the Puranas. So anyone knows what Hari Bhakti Suhodaya actually deals with? There are two famous pastimes of two exalted devotees detailedly discussed in the Hari Bhakti Suhodaya. Anyone knows? Can raise their hands. Any idea? Hari Bhakti Suhodaya. So Hari Bhakti Suhodaya, as Prabhupada is mentioning, is the transcendental literature extracted from the Puranas. So from the Puranas, from Bhagavatam and other Puranas, the characteristics of two pure devotees quite exhaustively is discussed in the Hari Bhakti Suhodaya. That is Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva. Devotion, their characteristics, and their pastimes are discussed. And of course, the philosophical conclusions of Bhakti is also mentioned in this literature. So, very Prabhupada quotes it often, and many verses are famous verses from the Hari Bhakti Suhodaya. There is another famous verse which Mahaprabhu also quotes, which is there in the Hari Bhakti Suhodaya. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastram Japastapa Apraseva Dehasya Mandalam Lokaranjanam. For a person devoid of devotional service. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya. Birth in a great family or nation. Prabhupada is including nation also, Jati. Knowledge of revealed scriptures, Shastram, performance of austerity and penance, Tapa, and chanting of Vedic mantras, Japa, are all like ornaments on a dead body. Apranasya Dehasya Mandanam. Such ornaments simply serve the concocted pleasures of the general populace. Mandanam Loka Ranjanam. So without devotion, all your study of medical literature, being having birth in the high family or doing austerity, all that is like decoration on the dead body. Prabhura Premavesha Ara Prabhava Bhakti Sar Saundarya Deki Atira Chamatkar. When he saw the Lord's ecstatic love, Vallabhatacharya was certainly very much astonished. He was also astonished by the Lord's knowledge of the essence of devotional service, as well as by his personal beauty and influence. So here we see now Bhattacharya, Vallabhatacharya First, he saw the ecstatic symptoms and understood, oh, these are not ordinary symptoms. Now he is hearing the conclusion of the scriptures, the Lord's knowledge about scriptures. Then he is seeing the beauty, Saundaryadi, and then his prabhav, influence. So all this, Lord has Shad Aishwarya. So all this Shad Aishwarya Purna, as Krishna is Shad Aishwarya Purna, Swayam Bhagwan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Shad Aishwarya Purna, Swayam Bhagwan. There is no difference. Kaviraj Goswami established this in the beginning of Adi Leela itself. So although he sees all this, still he doesn't get the full mercy of Mahaprabhu as Rūpa Goswami gets. That will come up in the further discussion. Now, the next theme from text 77 to 113 is Lord Chaitanya visits Adaila Gram. That is from 77 to 113. Till now, what we have discussed, anyone has any questions? You can raise your hands. Any questions, any clarification? Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, this last two verses which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted, this is also from Hari Bhakti Suhodaya only?
Yes, the last two verses are Hari Bhakti Suhodaya, Suchi Sad Bhakti Diptagni, Dabda Durjati Kalmusha, and Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya. Both are from Hari Bhakti Suhodaya. Any other questions anyone has? Okay, we'll just take a few verses. We have 5 more minutes. We'll just take a few more verses from this section, and then we'll wind up for today. Text 77 to 113. Text 77. Sagane Prabhura Bhatta Naukate Chardana Bhikshadite Nija Ghare Chalailalan. Vallabha Bhattacharya then put Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. Sagane Prabhura Bhatta Naukate Chardana. He took them aboard on the boat and took them to his own place to offer them lunch. Bhikshadite, Bhiksha means lunch. A Bhikshuka is a renunciate who does Madhukari. So here Vallabha Bhattacharya had the fortune to invite Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take lunch at his home. Yamunar Jaladeki Chikkana Shamala Premavesha Mahaprabhu Vaila Vihala. While crossing the river Yamuna, Yamunar Jaladeki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the glossy black water, Chikkana Shamala. The color of Yamuna is glossy black, and was immediately bewildered with ecstatic love. Prema Veshamam Mahaprabhu Vaila Vihala. So these in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the southern division, there is this discussion of the overview of rasa, and anyone knows, seeing anything which is related to Krishna, which reminds us of Krishna, what is the term Rūpa Goswami defines in the Bhakti Rasamrita? Anyone knows? Please raise your hands. Prabhuji has raised his hand. He has attended the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he knows about it. Anyone else? I would like to hear from others also. We'll see if others would like to, answer. Anyone else? Okay, Virendra Yadav Prabhuji, what is it called?
Prabhuji, it's Uddipan.
Yes, it is Uddipan. So, as sadhakas, although only at the stage of bhava, the stahi bhav is the permanent emotion, mixes with other ingredients, vibhava, anubhava, satviki bhav, and sanchari bhavs, and gives rise to rasa, where you live a life of bhakti ras. It begins at the stage of bhava, but even sadhakas should recognize uddipans. Uddipans in one way we can say are spiritual sense objects. Anything we see related to Krishna, we see in front of our tree, in front of our house, there is a Tamil tree. And we remember the Shyam, we see the Kadamba Vriksha, we see any river, we immediately remember Yamuna, we see any mountain, we remember Govardhan. So this is the way a devotee as sadhana should try to remember Krishna always, because one of the important limbs of sadhana bhakti is Martavya Satatam Vishnu. And that is why in the 10th chapter of the Gita is what is the Vibhuti Yoga. How every manifestation, what you see, which attracts you, Krishna is saying, it is just my amsha. It is Krishna is saying, I am that. Rasom apsu kaunteya. In the 7th chapter, Krishna is saying, I am the taste of water. Ashwata sarva vrikshana. Deva Rishim Janarada. So like that, everything Krishna is recognizing them, these vibhutis are just a tiny spark of power which is coming from him. So, oh, this vibhuti, this beauty, whatever you are seeing, it is coming from Krishna, he is the source of all beauty. So like that, the sadhakas should experience similar spiritual sense objects and try to remember Krishna. But Mahaprabhu is on a different platform. He is to become Premavesh, and then he is to start manifesting the Ashta Sattvic Vikars. And this is what is going to happen now here. Omkar Kari Yamunar Jale Dila Jhampa Prabhu Devi Sabarvana Hoila Bhaya Kampa. Indeed, as soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the river Yamuna, he immediately made a great sound and jumped into the water. So this is madness. This is Krishna prema. So seeing the black glossy water at Yamuna, he loudly shouted and jumped into the Yamuna. Everyone filled with fear and trembling was filled with fear and trembling to see. Sabamana Vaila Bhaya Kampa. So you can see this picture now. Aste Vyaste Savedhari Prabhu Uthaila Naukara Upara Prabhu Nachita Lagila. They all hastily grabbed Mahaprabhu and pulled him out of the water. So first he jumped into the water, all of them pulled him up. Now once he was back in the boat, once on the boat's platform, the Lord began to dance. So one stimulus, spiritual stimulus he received, and he went into ecstasy, and then Mahaprabhu is now manifesting all the ecstatic symptoms. So this we should try to relate, devotees should try to relate how, material stimulus, once we see something, immediately we get our heart, because the samskaras are there, the vasanas are there, it gets activated, and once it is activated, we fall trapped to Maya and get absorbed in material consciousness. So for Mahaprabhu, it was the other way, completely opposite. Anything he would see, it would cause him spiritual stimulus, and it is to take him into ecstasy. Mahaprabhu bhare nauka kare talamal dubite lagila nauka jhalake bhare jala. Due to the Lord's heavy weight, bhara, the boat began to tilt. Nauka kare talamal. It began filling up with water. Dubite lagi nauka, and was on the verge of sinking. So this is what was happening. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried to restrain himself as far as possible before Vallabhacharya. But although he tried to keep calm, his ecstatic love could not be checked. So it is said that Just like a chaste wife covers her head and doesn't expose herself to the public because she has chastity and devotion to her husband. Similarly, a chaste devotee who possesses love of Godhead will never exhibit such symptoms of ecstatic love. And people cannot understand it and they will take it cheaply also. So they will never show. But Mahaprabhu also wanted to restrain and never exhibit these symptoms before Vallabhacharya, yet he could not restrain himself. Such was the ecstasy Mahaprabhu was experiencing. Desha patra deki Mahaprabhu dhairya hoila, adailera ghate nauka asi uttarila. Seeing the circumstances, Desha patra dekhi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally became calm. Prabhu dhairya hoila, so that the boat was able to reach the shore of Adaila and land there. So after landing there, what happened? We will see in the next class. Any questions or clarifications up till now, what we discussed? We'll stop here today. We just took 3-4 minutes more because we started a little late. We started at 7:50. Any questions or any clarifications? Okay, one question we will take up. Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat. Prabhu, was that a disqualification that Vallabhacharya was a Brahmana? Means he's been so, he's recognizing the position of Rūpa and Anupama. Then he is appreciating. So why that this is there? Reservation by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to show him the mercy.
That's why when we carefully read the purports of Prabhupada, it becomes clear and see. However, due to his advanced devotional service, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as a Goswami. Vallabha Bhattacharya knew all this. He knew. One who is a devotee is above caste and creed. Vallabhacharya knew. Yet, Vallabhacharya felt prestigious. Mark this point, what Mahaprabhu is saying. Internally, what is going on, Prabhupada is explaining that. In the previous purport also, we saw in the beginning, he was very much devoted to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vallabhacharya. But since he thought he could not receive proper respect from him, so Vallabhacharya expected respect from Mahaprabhu. Why did he expect respect from Mahaprabhu? Because he thought he is coming from a Brahmana community and he is the authority of Brahmana on Brahmanism and he is a great scholar. In fact, if you read the Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta, many times Vallabha Bhattacharya came with his commentary and explanation. He wanted to give his explanation of the commentary he wrote to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu said, the Mool Tikakar of Srimad Bhagavatam is, who is it? Sridhar Swami.
Sridhar Swami.
Anyone who doesn't follow the footsteps of Sridhar Swami, he is considered as an unchaste one. Mahaprabhu straight away said this to Bhagavad. So many times these incidents happen, and the Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta it is described. And then Vallabhacharya came with another argument that why you take the name of Krishna? Anyone chaste wife, she will not take the name of her husband openly. So this kind of argument came up, and then Mahaprabhu gave that reply. So many times these conversations are there in the Madhya Lila, and now further it will come up. So we see the fine reasonings here Prabhupada has given in this purport. This was one reasoning, that's why I marked it. And here also we saw that this is the second reason. That's why, although he could have joined Mahaprabhu and got the highest prema by following Rūpa Goswami, becoming a Rūpa Guru and attaining Golok Vrindavan in the highest rasa, but yet he settled down for something.
Mm.
There is another reasoning also given by Srila Prabhupada that Vallabhacharya could not handle or digest the highest rasa, which is Madhuri Ras, which the gopis have for Krishna. So he settled down for something lower, which is Vatsalya Ras. That's why the followers of Vallabhacharya more are worshippers of Laddu Gopal, Balakrishna,
Mm.
and they more relish the Balakrishna pastimes. It's more propagating the Vatsalya Ras. So from the rasa point of view also we can see he settled down for something lower because he could not digest the highest philosophy what Mahaprabhu is giving.
Mm.
And there are other reasons also which will come up further in the purpose. We'll take it.
Okay. Thank you.
This, we should see this from a right perspective that how glorious is what Mahaprabhu has come to give us. We should not say, oh, they are practicing something which is not the highest. We should not see, we should see it from a positive perspective, and we should understand how glorious is what Mahaprabhu has come to give us if we follow Rupa Goswami. That is why these incidents are coming before Rupa Śikṣā happens. And that is why we are going into the detail of this, in the flow of Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta, before we dive into Rupa Śikṣā, which we will definitely doing from next week onwards. I hope it is clear, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay. So we will stop now. And we saw in today's class how Vallabhacharya met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu embraced him and he introduced to Rūpa and Anupam. And they offered dandots with great humility. And when Vallabhacharya wanted to go near them, immediately they moved backside and we are fallen, we are outcast. But Vallabhacharya understood, oh, they are constantly taking the name of God. You are not Adham, you are Sarvotham. And he quoted a verse of the Bhagavatam. And Mahaprabhu was pleased by their behavior. And he clarified to Vallabhacharya, oh, they are fallen. No, they are not fallen, Vallabhacharya said. And then Vallabhacharya quoted these verses, Mahaprabhu quoted the verses. And then we saw now Vallabhacharya is taking Mahaprabhu to his own house for lunch. And we saw that how Mahaprabhu just saw the glossy black Yamuna water and he became ecstatic because of Uddipan. And he went into ecstasy, jumped to the Yamuna. The devotees picked him up and in the boat he started now dancing in ecstasy. He could not hold the ecstatic symptoms because that was the stage of Mahaprem or Mahabhav. And as sadhakas, how we should use these spiritual sense objects to always remember Krishna is very important for sadhakas. So in the next week, we will continue our discussion. And next week, we will begin the Rūpa Śikṣā actually. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya-Caritāmṛta.